My boss said, "You're playing with people you don't understand." Then I found the forged invoices and watched him smile at the audit. I felt a cold, steady control settle over me. When I started leaving small, precise truths in their path, everything began to tip. When you've worked long enough in finance, you stop seeing numbers. You see patterns, pressure points, movements, shadows behind the decimals. I used to think that made me good at my job. Turns out, it just made me dangerous. I'd been with Ellison and Hart Capital for 11 years. Senior financial analyst, not flashy, not powerful, just the guy who made sure the books lined up before anyone saw them. My boss, Daniel Mercer, was the opposite. He was charm wrapped in $1,000 suit. Every handshake came with a promise. Every promise came with a lie. For a while, that didn't bother me. I believed that if I just did my job well enough, I'd rise above the noise. But when the audit hit last spring and the blame fell on me for a misreported fund, everything changed. $17 million. Gone. Vanished from a portfolio that had my initials in the ledger. Overnight, my name went from reliable to liability. Mercer didn't even flinch. "It's unfortunate, Alex," he said during my exit interview, "but we need accountability. I'm sure you understand." He was calm. Too calm. That was the first sign. 2 weeks later, I found something that didn't make sense. An old drive I'd backed up before they locked my access. It had archived reports from last quarter, tiny inconsistencies like duplicated invoice IDs. When I cross-referenced them, I saw the pattern. Multiple fake vendor accounts, all routing to the same shell company in Delaware. I checked the registration. The company didn't exist 6 months before the audit. And the contact listed? D. Mercer. That's when I heard his voice in my head again. "You're playing with people you don't understand." He was right in a way. I didn't understand them. But I was going to. So I started small. Quiet. I rented a storage unit under a different name. Brought in a printer, an old laptop, a burner phone. I started collecting invoice copies, timestamps, internal memos. Most of it I still had access to through third-party accounts and shared vendors. I knew where the data lived because I'd built half the systems. Every night I'd sit there under a single buzzing light, sorting through files. It wasn't revenge yet. It was math. And math always tells the truth if you let it. 3 weeks in, I had a map of the fraud. Mercer and two others had been funneling investor money into dummy projects, short-term micro funds that existed just long enough to pass an audit cycle before collapsing into write-offs. The money then reappeared as consulting payments under shell LLCs. Classic, efficient, invisible. But there was one flaw. They used the same notary ID for every shell account registration. I traced it back to Mercer's assistant. That was my first thread, and I pulled hard. Once I had the pattern, I started building pressure. Quietly, methodically. Mercer loved control. Every meeting, every deal, he shaped the narrative before anyone could question it. So I decided to give him something he couldn't control: uncertainty. First, I sent a set of anonymous documents to an old contact at the Financial Conduct Authority. Just enough to open an inquiry, not enough to name anyone. Then I leaked the same numbers to a minor investment blog under the guise of a whistleblower tip. Within days, rumors started swirling. Possible internal discrepancies. Audit trail inconsistencies. Mercer brushed it off during the weekly call. "Baseless," he said. "Just noise from competitors." But I saw it in his jaw. Tight, controlled, nervous. He'd noticed the whisper. Meanwhile, I kept collecting. There were shell accounts in Luxembourg, a fake branch in Denver, even a property investment group tied to his brother-in-law. The more I dug, the clearer it got. The company was a spiderweb, and Mercer sat at the center. I reached out to two former colleagues who'd been quietly pushed out after questioning him. One of them, Lisa Chen, had been on the audit team. When I met her in a coffee shop near Union Square, she looked exhausted. "You're still chasing this?" she asked. "Finishing it," I said. She hesitated. Then she slid me a flash drive. "Internal audit drafts. They deleted them before submission. Don't tell me how you'll use it." On the way home, I thought about what she risked for that. Maybe more than I was. The next phase was social engineering. The firm had layers: PR, legal, investor relations. All these people who never talk to each other unless someone made them. So I made them. I created a new anonymous account, Internal Whistle, sent cryptic but accurate tips to mid-level employees, just enough to sow paranoia. Check Project Hermes Q3 transfers. Look at vendor 5412's account. They did. I could tell by the sudden late-night email activity on the internal servers. People were digging. Some of them even started confronting their managers. And Mercer? He was fighting fires he didn't even see. At the same time, I traced money movements into offshore accounts through a chain of shell companies registered under initials CB, DM, RT. The Delaware address popped up again. It wasn't enough to prove theft yet, but it was enough to break his illusion. I wanted him to feel what I felt when he hung me out to dry. Small, exposed, powerless. But every move I made came with a cost. One night, I got an email from my old HR contact, subject line, friendly warning. Inside a single line. They're asking questions about you. I closed the laptop and stared at the dark screen. It wasn't fear that hit me. It was the realization that I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. And I didn't care. I started recording things. Phone calls, meetings, even casual conversations. Every time Mercer spoke, I noted his tone, his phrasing, the little details that could later serve as proof or pressure. Lisa helped me again, this time by forwarding an internal chat log between Mercer and the CFO. They discussed balancing adjustments and Q4 cleanups. I layered that with the fake invoices, aligning their timestamps. It was a perfect match. The next piece came by accident. Mercer's assistant, Rachel, sent out a mass email one night with a wrong attachment. It was supposed to be a quarterly review, but she'd attached an audio note instead. Mercer's voice, mid-conversation, saying, "Just move it. We'll reconcile after the audit. Nobody checks the side ledgers anyway." I don't believe in luck, but that file changed everything. I cleaned it up, enhanced the sound, verified the metadata. Then I built a presentation. Simple slides, clean data, red circles, no commentary. It wasn't for the police. Not yet. It was for the shareholders. The annual general meeting was coming up in 3 weeks. Mercer would be standing in front of everyone, investors, partners, press, selling another quarter of success built on fraud. So I planned my entry. I registered under a proxy shareholder account, technically legal since I still held a small amount of stock from before my termination. I booked my pass under a different name. Meanwhile, I kept feeding small pieces of the story to Jamie Lowe, the same journalist who'd covered corporate fraud cases before. She didn't know my name, but she had the data. I wanted pressure from both sides, external and internal. The night before the meeting, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the slide deck, the audio file, the evidence that had taken months of my life to piece together. There was no going back after this. When I walked into the hotel ballroom that morning, everything looked normal. Mercer was laughing, shaking hands, his charm turned up to 11. But I saw the tension under it, the way his assistant avoided eye contact, the stiffness in the CFO's shoulders. When the Q&A started, I waited until the last minute. Then I raised my hand. "Alex Hartman, shareholder," I said. His face froze. "I have some questions about Project Hermes and the missing 17 million. The room went quiet. He stammered something about ongoing audits. I didn't let him finish. I plugged in a USB drive and played the audio. His own voice filled the speakers. "Just move it. We'll reconcile after the audit." Every head turned. Every whisper stopped. Mercer's mask cracked. "That's out of context," he said, his voice shaking. "You don't know what you're talking about." But I did, and everyone in that room knew it too. The fallout came fast. Within 48 hours, Ellison and Hart's stock dropped 20%. The board called an emergency session. Mercer was suspended pending investigation. Jamie published the story with full documentation. The Financial Conduct Authority opened a formal probe. I stayed quiet. No interviews, no statements, just silence. A week later, I saw Mercer on TV. He looked thinner, paler. His lawyer was speaking for him now. "My client denies all allegations." The usual script. But the cracks were there. By the end of the month, federal investigators raided the firm's headquarters. The CFO turned over evidence in exchange for immunity. Mercer was indicted on charges of wire fraud and embezzlement. I thought I'd feel something. Vindication, satisfaction, maybe even joy. But all I felt was tired. Lisa called me once after the news broke. "You did it," she said. "No," I said. "I just showed them what they were already ignoring." She didn't reply. Neither of us did. Some people lost their jobs. The company's pension fund froze for review. A few innocent employees got caught in the collapse. That part stuck with me. I took a new job at a small accounting firm upstate. Different world. No luxury offices, no stock tickers, no fake smiles, just numbers that actually meant something. Sometimes, late at night, I still check the news. Mercer's trial drags on. His lawyers file motions, appeals, excuses. But the story's already written. He taught me something without meaning to. That power isn't in who signs the checks. It's in who keeps the records. And I keep everything now. Every file, every note, every line of code. I don't trust systems anymore. I only trust the evidence. Because once you've seen how truth can be buried, you either turn away or you learn to dig. And I've gotten very, very good at digging.